Hello everyone, welcome to Jolly Molly TV. Today we're going to do another fun block in Kimberbell's Pumpkins and Potions ladder quilt project. So in today's video we're going to work on the plaid blocks. There's two of them. There's one right here and there's one right up here. So go ahead and grab your plastic pouch or bag system that you've labeled Plaid Block. And let's head over to the machine and let's get started stitching. Okay, we're at the machine and this is going to be a fun day. What I've done is I've put a bobbin with white thread down below and I have loaded my 5x7 hoop with a piece of the Poly No-Show Mesh Stabilizer. Now, let me show you the block that we're working on today. We're working on the plaid block right here, and there's another one right down here. And if you notice, this one has black in the corner and this one starts with white in the corner. If you look at page 54 in your instructions, it is basically the same block. What they've done is, if you look at this one here, it has a row of black and gray on top. This is turned around. If you were to pivot this block around, it would also have a dark black strip on top and a strip on the side. So it's basically the same block. We're going to make this block twice. The only difference is when we go to assemble the second one, it's assembled with white first instead of the black. But it really doesn't matter. You could make two of the exact same identical block and put it in your quilt here in the same direction. It doesn't matter. You can do it either way. It's your quilt. You can make it your own. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make this block in two videos. I'm going to break this up into part 1 and part 2 because there's really two techniques you need to master while making this block, and it's a lot to do in one video. So we're going to learn how to do the first part and make all the components we need in that first part to make the two blocks, and then in the second video we will do the second technique with those pieces that we're making today. I want to make it easy for you to understand and be able to successfully make this block. The other option is if you feel a little bit too intimidated by this, that's okay. You can buy a piece of plaid fabric and just do the quilting on it, which we'll do in the end of part 2. You can do that. I actually contemplated doing that. I'm like, no, everyone needs to learn how to do this. So I'm going to walk you through the steps to do this. But a piece of plaid fabric is a real quick and easy answer as well if this is a little bit too hard for you. But go ahead and watch along as I do this. I recommend you watching the video first before you tackle this. Then rewind the video and sew along as I go. That way you'll have the whole technique in your head before you start to tackle this, okay? So let's go ahead and dive in. You can do this. I have total confidence in you and I will help you do it, okay? So get out your plastic pouch system that you have labeled Plaid Block and pull out your fabrics. And as you can tell, I am definitely not using the kit. I'm using my own stash. So I'm changing mine up a little bit. I'm going to have like the Haunted Mansion colors in this plaid block. I'm going to have my favorite white glitter fabric, which I absolutely love. I'm going to have a light lavender from the Riley Blake Spooky Hollow line, and then I'm going to have, I think it's called Scuba Bats, which is like a color. It's almost like a mint green. I think those three are going to be great. The first step we need to do is we need to identify our fabrics. Meaning, let me get my book over here. Meaning we have 3 different colors of fabric. And then if you have the kit, they go fabric 1 is black. Fabric 2 is gray and fabric 3 is a cream. And they label it like fabric 1A, fabric 2, and fabric 1B. All right. All I want you to do is get a small stack of sticky notes and a pen. And I want you to make 3 sticky notes that say fabric 1, fabric 2, and fabric 3. And now we're going to identify these fabrics, and this is going to help prevent you from being confused as we do this project. So fabric 1, if you have the kit, is black. You need 6 pieces, 5.5 inch by 2. I have chosen that my kind of a scuba mint green color bat fabric is my black. All right. So I'm labeling this fabric number 1. Then my next piece, fabric number 2, which if you have the kit is gray. You need 12 pieces, 5.5 inches by 2. So I have labeled this lavender purple haunted fabric as my fabric 2, and I have 12 pieces of this. Then fabric 3, if you have the kit, is a cream. So I have used my glitter fabric white right here, and I have 6 pieces of that, 5.5 by 2. So to rewind, fabric 1, black, or your choice, you need 6 pieces. Fabric 2, gray, or your choice, you need 12 pieces. And fabric 3, cream, or your choice, you need 6 pieces. So I've placed a sticky note, so now I know through this process what I'm going to be using when. Okay, label these and then put this aside. So right now we're going to start with fabrics 1 and 2. So I put those right in front of my machine and put fabric 3 off to the side. Also, as I'm doing this, as I'm going to select the fabric, I'm going to select it from the back. So I'm not going to disrupt my sticky note. That's going to stay as a label on top of the fabric until I'm completely done. All right, so we got fabrics 1 and fabrics 2. That's how I'm going to be identifying these as we go along, because I don't want you confused with 1A and 2B or all that stuff. We're just going to be making a block on the machine, and I'll call out, like for this, we're going to be working on fabrics 1 and fabrics 2. All right, so these go back in front of my machine. We're going to use a neutral thread throughout this whole process. So I've got white thread up above and a white bobbin thread down below. So now let's go to the screen cam and load the design. Okay, I have a Baby Lock Destiny, which is identical to the Brother Dream Machine. If you have something similar, you can follow along. Go to click on Embroidery, go to my flash drive, go to Pumpkins and Potions, and I'm going to look for a plaid design. Now there's 2 designs. Okay, I'm going to click on this first one. This has 3 distinct columns. This is going to be the one that you want. Okay, and how to tell it apart from the other one, I'm going to pull this one out. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. You don't want this one. Okay, so say no to the 4 for now. We want this one, which has 3 distinct columns. Okay, that's the one we want. We're going to click Set. It's going to bring it in centered. We don't have to do anything else to it. And we're going to click Embroidery. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do with white thread up on top and white thread down below is we're going to stitch out the placement line and grid lines for this first block. Here we go. Okay, now we're going to stitch the first placement line. Foot down, and here we go. It's a line straight across. Okay, so make a note that that placement line is now this upper line. So I'm going to take the hoop off the machine just so I can see what I'm doing. And I am going to grab a piece of fabric number 1. There we go. And a piece of fabric number 2. Okay. And get my excess threads off here. Okay. So fabric number 1. There we go. We're just going to lay it down here just so we can visually see what it's going to look like. All right. You're going to be centering this fabric so that it's centered based on this outer stitch line and this outer stitch line here. Okay. Now we're going to put the second fabric number 2, and we're going to put it down. I'm going to raise it up so you can see. Right sides together, otherwise facing down. And we're going to line it up so it's even with fabric number 1, the bottom one. Okay. Now I'm going to line that up with that placement line. And what you want it to be able to do is after it's stitched down, we're going to flip it over, and then I want both fabrics facing upward. Okay. So in order to accomplish that, this top fabric, number 2, goes face down. Okay. So I'm going to put the hoop back on the machine, and I'm going to put the foot down, and I want to see where this is going to stitch. I want to make sure I have approximately 1/4 of an inch on this top side, and that way I know I'm looking at the right placement line. If I had accidentally put it on this lower line down here, I'll flip this over. If I put it on this lower line here, you would not have 1/4 inch. But you're using this second line, that placement line it just stitched, as your line up for where to put this fabric. Okay, line it back down. You can tape it or use your stylus to hold it in place. And we're going to stitch this down. It's going to stitch a line from here over to there. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that works perfectly. You're doing great. Now we're going to flip this fabric up. Put my stylus down here. And I'm just going to finger press it. If you want to, you can take your hoop off your machine gently so you don't pop the hoop. Take it over to an ironing board and you can press this. But I found that doing just a finger press along this way here works really well, and I don't have to keep getting up and down from the iron. All right, so now it's going to stitch a tack down line for this fabric from here all the way over. So I'm going to use my stylus to hold it down. Here we go. Okay, you've got this. It's working, it's working. Okay, I got some threads and stuff. Don't worry about the mess you're going to create. You'll clean it up as we go along, all right? So now I need you to take a piece of curved scissors. This is a pair of Havel curved scissors, which I love because you can see they're curved upwards. So they help you not to puncture the stabilizer down below. If you're interested and don't have a pair of these, I have these listed in the description below where I get them from Amazon. Okay, so now we're going to take those curved scissors and I want you to trim away this excess fabric on top or just to the outside of that stitch line. Normally I would do this on the table, but I want you to see it so you know exactly where to trim. Okay, but take this to the table because you don't want to accidentally pop your hoop out because then you got to start all over. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I have a bobbin that's still attached. Let's get that off. Okay. It does that every once in a while. So now I want you to get a piece of fabric 1 fabric. Okay, fabric number 1. And we're going to do the same thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it face down on that placement line. I can actually take the hoop off if you need to see better. And this tack down line that we just did and we just trimmed actually now becomes the placement line. Again, center the fabric so that it's got a little bit left over on each side of these 2 placement lines and put it on that stitch line. Okay, this is fabric number 1. Now I'm going to put my foot down and I'm going to look to see where it's going to stitch. And when it lands, yes, I'm going to have a good 1/4 inch of a seam allowance, so it's a perfect place to put it. Okay, so let's put our foot down. Whoops, which I already had down, but okay. So now let's stitch down this fabric. It's going to do a line from here to here. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this fabric up and finger press it into place. Okay, once I've got a good finger press, I'm going to put the foot down and we're going to tack down this fabric. This is looking really pretty. Cool. All right, so now I'm going to take the hoop gently off the machine, and now we're going to trim away this excess fabric here on the outside of that stitch line. Take it to a table to do this. All right. Here we go, very gently. Okay. Cool. All right, so now we're going to grab a piece of fabric number 2. Fabric number 2. All right, so now I'm going to flip that over, right sides together, and I'm going to center it on that placement line so I have a little bit on each side. Put the hoop back on, put the foot down, and see where it's going to stitch. It's going to stitch right there, which is a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. We are golden. So now when we stitch this out, it's going to stitch a line from here over to here. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I don't need to take the hoop off because I can do this without it. I'm going to push it up, flip it up, and finger press it down. I really like those colors together. That's cool. This is my Haunted Mansion Pumpkins and Potions quilt. Okay, so now I'm going to put the foot down, and it's going to stitch a tack down line from here all the way over to there. Okay, we ready? Let's do this. You got it. Step by step. There we go. Okay, so now I take the hoop off very gently. And now I need you to trim away this excess fabric right here along the top part of that stitch line. Okay, got it. All right, so now I want you to grab a piece of fabric number 1, which mine's accidentally upside down. There we go, fabric number 1. And I want you to lay that down, center it, so you have about the equal amount on each side of that placement line on the outside, and then it's on that stitch line that you just did, right side down. And now it's going to stitch a line from here to here. Put the foot down, look where it's going to stitch. Good, it's a good 1/4 inch. And here we go, you got this. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this up and finger press it. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to put the foot down, and it's going to stitch a tack down line from here over to here. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine, and then I want you to trim away this excess fabric from the top of that stitch line. Again, go to a table. The hoop's getting a little precarious, so I'm actually using my tummy to help hold it in place. But I need you to be able to see where I'm cutting. Okay, so now we're looking at that being done. Now I'm going to grab a piece of fabric number 2. Okay, same thing. Turn it over, right side down. Center it on that placement line and with a little bit equal on each side. And put the hoop back on. Foot down, look where it's going to stitch. If it stitches there, I'm going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is what I want. So let's put the foot down and stitch this down. It's going to run a line from here over to here. Here we go. Okay, and now we're going to flip this up, put it down, finger press it all the way over, and now it's going to do a line all the way around the outside, and it's going to do 2 internal lines. So I want to make sure I use my stylus to keep the fabric down, and if I need to, at any point I could stop it and then restart the machine. I'm just going to watch to make sure it doesn't catch any of these edges, okay? So it's foot down, and let's tack this down. Okay, good. It's going down the middle. That's good. Right on. That is really cool. All right, you did it. You just made your first block. Look at how cool that is. So it's 6 pieces of fabric, and you have 3 of fabric 1 and 3 of fabric 2. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do this again. We're going to make an identical block using the exact same fabrics. All right. So go ahead and take this hoop off the machine, go over to the table and reload your 5x7 hoop with another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I got my 5x7 loaded with another piece of that poly no-show mesh stabilizer. And now let's go to the screen cam, because the only thing you have to do here where it says finished embroidering is click OK. The machine will automatically go back to the original stitch number 1. And that's what we're going to use. So we don't want to touch anything else. It's ready to stitch another grid and start this block over again. And that's what we want. Now I'm back at the hoop cam, and we're going to leave the same threads up on top, white in the top and white in the bottom, and let's put the foot down and stitch out that grid again. Here we go. Okay, so now we've got that stitched out. Let's put the foot down and stitch out the first placement line for the fabric. Okay, so now I want you to grab a piece of fabric 1. Take the hoop gently off the machine, and I want you to lay it down for right now, right on that placement line, and center it. Then I want you to take a piece of fabric number 2 and lay it face down just on top of that first fabric, so it looks like this. And make sure it's lined up, and then put those down together on that placement line, centering it on these 2 outer stitch lines, so you have about the same amount of extra off on the sides. Okay, put the hoop back on. We're going to put the foot down and take a look at where it's going to stitch. It's perfect. It's going to stitch 1/4 of an inch on that side, and it's going to stitch a line from here to here. You got this. Let's do it. Okay, so now I'm going to flip up that fabric number 2 so it's upright and it looks all cute and pretty, and I'm going to finger press it, and then I'm going to put the foot down, and it's going to tack this down, running a stitch from here over to the left. Here we go. Yeah, normally don't put my hand that close. It moved, and I should have tried to switch and stop the machine, but don't put your hand that close to the moving needle, okay? All right, so now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine, and I want you to cut away the excess fabric right here on that side of the stitch line. There we go. Right on. Okay, so now I want you to take a piece of fabric number 1, and I want you to put that face down. Center it again on the 2 sides so you kind of have the same amount of extra on both sides. Put the hoop back on, put your foot down, and again we got a good 1/4 inch, so we are good to tack this fabric down. All right, you got this, right? You're getting the hang of it. Just 1 step at a time. Okay, flip that fabric up, finger press it, put the foot down, and it's going to stitch a line from the left over to the right, tacking this fabric down. Here we go. Okay, take the hoop off the machine, and now I want you to trim away the excess fabric from outside that stitch line. See, as long as you break it down 1 step at a time, it's not that difficult in the long run, as long as you get hang of what you're doing. See, it's like, okay, by the time you get the second block done, you're like, yeah, I think I can do this. And that's what I strive for. All right, so now I'm going to get a piece of fabric number 2. I'm going to put that one right sides down, center it again, so you have the same amount on each side of that outer stitch line. Put your foot down. Do I have a good 1/4 inch on this side? Yes, that means I'm right on that placement line. And let's tack down this fabric. It's going to stitch from right to left. Okay, what are you going to do now? You're going to flip that fabric up, and you're going to finger press it. And now it's going to put the foot down, and it's going to stitch the tack down line from the right to the left. Here we go. Cool. Take the hoop off the machine. You got this. And now we're going to trim away the excess fabric on the upper part of that stitch line. You got this. Okay, so now I'm going to get the last piece of fabric number 1. Got a few threads on it. And I'm going to put this right size down, line it up on that placement line, and center it on the outside edge of those 2 outer stitch lines here. Put the foot down, and I can tell I'm a little high on that side, so I brought it down just a little bit. So I have a good 1/4 inch seam allowance, so it's going to stitch out. And let's tack this down. It's going to stitch from left to right. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this fabric up. Finger press it. There we go. And now it's going to tack this fabric down, stitch line from left to right. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine. That looks good. Actually, it's a little loose. You see that? I got a little loose here. So I'm not happy with that. So here's how we fix it. Because see, it's a little loose. If I have a little bit of a crinkle there, I don't want it to be a little bit flatter. All I have to do is take out this stitch line. Takes just a little bit. I'm going to take it out real quick and we're going to restitch this because I don't like it. I want it to be a little bit flatter. And if I catch it now at this time, I can easily fix it. Later, not so much. But now I can catch it and fix it so it's a little bit flatter. Okay, so just take out this stitch line if this happens to you. Almost done. Almost done. Okay. And then I just got to make sure that I hold it flatter as I stitch. Okay. So let's get these excess off of here and off of here so it's free to move. I need it to be totally free to move so I can flatten it down. All right, so now I'm going to finger press it again a little bit better. Put it back on the machine. Let's go to the screen cam. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to do the plus and minus button. And I'm going to go up, which is back, one stitch. All right, and I click OK. That's all I have to do. Now go back to the hoop cam. Okay, now it's going to do that stitch again from left to right. I just need to make sure I hold it down better this time around. Okay, so foot down. And here we go. Okay. That's much better. All right, so that's how you fix a mistake like that. Now it's nice and flat. Okay, so take the hoop off your machine and I need you to trim away this excess fabric right up here. Like so. Okay. Then I need you to get a piece of fabric number 2. And I'm going to put that right side down, center it along the outer 2 stitch lines, and put it on that placement line in the middle. Put the foot down and I can see, am I going to have a good 1/4 inch? Yes, I am. So we're good to tack this down. Okay, now all I have to do is flip that last piece of fabric up, finger press it really well, and now it's going to do the center lines and the outside edge line to tack this down. So you got it. Foot down and let's stitch this out. Oh, that's my bobbin thread. So When your bobbin thread runs out in the middle of a stitch out like that, I'm just going to cut my thread. Okay, and then I'm going to take the hoop gently off the machine. Okay, take my bobbin out. Yep, it was almost completely empty. All right, so now I'm going to use another one of my partial ones here. Yeah, let's use this one. I like to use some of my partial ones at this point. It's not a lot of thread to do a whole block with, but it's plenty of thread to do this type of work with. So I've got probably a 1/4 bobbin down there. Okay. And now I'm going to go to the screen cam here. I'm going to show you, see it says bobbin is almost empty. So I'm going to click return. And now I want to go to my plus and minus key. And I'm just going to go back 10 stitches. That'll give it enough to lock the stitch in and to stitch forward on that. So we're good. Let's go back to the hoop cam. And let's put the foot down. And let's keep stitching this outer stitch line down. All right, you have now finished the second block in this series, okay? We're going to do this again, but this next one, which will be the block number 3, we're going to be changing the fabrics up a little bit. Basically, your instructions are to do 2 in this fabric combination and then 2 more in the second fabric combination. And what that's going to give you with all 4 of these blocks is it's going to give you the pieces that you need to make both of the plaid blocks, okay? But in today's video, we are just focusing on this first technique, getting all of these blocks made, all 4, so that then we're ready for video number 2, okay? Take the block out of the hoop and reload your hoop with another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I've got another piece of that poly no-show mesh stabilizer in my 5x7 hoop. Let's go to the screen cam, and all we have to do when it says finished embroidering is click OK. It will automatically go to the beginning so we can start doing number 3 in this block series. That's all you got to do. Okay, so let's go to the hoop cam. White thread still up on top. Put the foot down, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to stitch out that grid. Here we go. Okay, so now we're going to stitch the next line, which is going to be the placement line for the fabric. Okay, remember when I told you that we have fabrics 1, 2, and 3, right? Now we're going to switch it up. So I took the hoop off the machine. I am now looking for fabric number 3. Okay, fabric number 3 is going to be the face up fabric, okay? Then we go back and grab a piece of fabric number 2. Okay, fabric number 2 is going to be the one that I put right side down. And then I'm going to line it up with fabric 3. And then I'm going to put it down on that stitch line with a little bit of excess on each. So fabric 3 is on the bottom facing up. Fabric 2 is facing down, right sides together. Same centering technique on that placement line. Okay, you got this. So I'm going to put the foot down. I'm going to have a good 1/4 inch seam there. So let's tack down this fabric, running a stitch from here to the left. Okay, so now I'm going to flip that fabric up. Oh, this is going to be pretty. And I'm going to finger press all the way down. And now it's going to do a stitch line from the right over to the left. Put the foot down and let's tack this fabric down. Okay, so now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine and I'm going to trim away the excess of this fabric that is over that stitch line. And take this to the table. Oh, I know I've said it before, but it just is a better way so that you don't possibly pop the hoop up. But now we're going to grab another piece of fabric number 3. There we go, sparkly side up to go down, and then I'm going to flip it. So it's right side down and center it on these 2 outer stitch lines so I have a little bit of excess on each side. Okay, put my foot down. Do I have a good 1/4 inch? Yes, I do. So let's tack down this fabric. It's going to run a stitch left to right. Okay, get that extra thread out there. Okay, now I'm going to flip this up and I'm going to finger press. And then I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to tack down this fabric using a stitch line from left to right. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine and I'm going to trim away the excess fabric on this side of the stitch line. You got this. Isn't this now becoming familiar? We're on the 3rd version of this. We're changing it up with different fabrics, but it's the same technique. See? You got this. All right, so what do you think is next? I think you're right. I think we're going to grab fabric number 2. And then we're going to flip that up, right sides down, center it on these 2 lines on the outer edges so we have a little bit of excess on each side. Foot down, yep, we got a good 1/4 inch. Let's tack it down. Okay, so now we're going to flip that up, finger press it into place, put the foot down and tack this one down. Okay, so take the hoop off the machine. And now I want you to trim away this excess fabric on the top part of that stitch line. Okay, so guess what? You got it. Now we're going to get another piece of fabric number 3. Put it right side down. Center it on these 2 outer stitch lines. Put the hoop back on, put the foot down. Do I have a good 1/4 inch seam allowance? Yes, I do. And let's tack this down. Okay, so now I'm going to put that fabric up, or flip it up as they call it, finger press it down, and now it's going to run a stitch line from left to right, tacking that down. Okay, so now take the hoop off the machine. You know what to do. You're going to trim up this fabric on this top part of the stitch line. There we go. Now I'm going to look for another piece of fabric number 2. And I'm going to flip that over. Right sides together, center it again on those 2 outer stitch lines, leaving some excess on each side. Put the foot down. Do I have a good 1/4 inch? Yes, I do. So let's tack this fabric down. Okay, now we're going to flip that fabric and we're going to finger press it. And now it's going to do that center tack down line. So we are ready to tack all of this down. You ready? Got this. All right, look at that. Isn't that cool? All right, so now you've just finished number 3 of this. Isn't that great? So we only have one more left to do. It's going to be identical to this one using the fabrics that you have left, which is fabrics 3 and fabrics 2. All right, we're going to make one more. So let's take this out of the hoop and reload your hoop with another piece of the poly no-show mesh stabilizer, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, I've reloaded it. Poly no-show mesh is in that 5x7 hoop. Gonna go to the screen cam. It says finished embroidering. Click OK. And it brings you right to the start again. So you don't have to do anything else. We are ready to go. I love that, don't you? Okay, let's put the foot down. Let's stitch out that grid one more time. Oops, my needle came undone. I need to re-thread my needle. All right. Do that. White thread on top, white on the bottom. Here we go. Okay, so now let's put the foot down and let's stitch out the placement line for the first fabric, which will be a piece of fabric number 3. Okay, so I'm going to take the hoop off the machine. I'm going to take a piece of fabric number 3. I'm going to lay that down facing up. Then I'm going to grab a piece of fabric number 2. I'm going to lay that down on top of that, and then I'm going to center the fabrics, line them up together, put them on that placement line, and do the same thing what we've done. Center them so that you have a little bit of excess on each side of those outer lines. Put the foot down, and you know what to do. We got a good 1/4 inch. Yes, we do. Let's tack down this fabric. Okay, so now I'm going to flip up that fabric number 2 so it's facing up, and I'm going to finger press it. We're good. Put the foot down and let's tack down this fabric. Okay, so let's take the hoop off the machine, and now I'm going to ask you to trim away this excess fabric from on top of that stitch line. Okay. Get my arm out of the way there. All right. So now I want you to grab a piece of fabric number 3, and I want you to put that face down on that placement line and center it on the side so it's got about the equal amount on each side. Put the foot down. You guessed it. Do I have a good 1/4 inch? Yes, I do. Let's tack this fabric down. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this fabric up. That sparkle is so pretty. I love that fabric. All right, so now I'm going to put the foot down, and we're going to tack down this piece of fabric. It's going to stitch left to right. Okay, so now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine, and we're going to trim away the excess fabric from on top of that stitch line. Okay, now we're going to get a piece of fabric number 2, and we're going to put that right side down, center it on that placement line, and with a little bit extra, on each end. Put the foot down. We got a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. We can tack this down. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to flip that up so the fabric is face out. Do a finger press, tack down this fabric. You got this. Okay, now I'm going to take the hoop off the machine, and now I need you to trim away this excess fabric from the top of that stitch line. Okay, you got this. There's a rhythm to this, and you see it now, and that's important. You see the rhythm, you know what we're doing now for each step. So you're getting more and more confident the more projects of Kimberbell that you do. This is the amazing part. Okay, so now I'm going to take the last piece of fabric number 3, and I'm going to put that face down like so. Again, center it on the 2 sides, put the foot down, and we have got a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's tack this down. Cool. Now we're going to flip that fabric up, put it down, finger press it, foot down, and let's tack this piece of fabric down. Nice. Let's take the hoop off the machine. Now I want you to trim away the excess fabric from up on top of this stitch line. And we are almost done. This is a lot of work, but I think it's going to be a really cool block when we're all done. A piece of plaid fabric is a lot easier, but this is kind of a way of doing your own custom plaid block. All right, so it's on the placement line centered. Foot down, and let's tack this down. Yeah, so you're basically making your own custom plaid fabric. I can't see doing an entire quilt with blocks like this, but I can definitely see doing accent blocks here and there with your own plaid fabric. Okay, it's a new technique. Take that fabric, flip it up, finger press it, and now we're going to do the lines down the middle and the outside to tack it all down. Here we go. Okay, you have now finished all 4 blocks. Isn't that fun? It's a lot of work. I will have to admit that. It is a lot of steps and a lot of labor of love to make something like this. But if you're only doing 2 in a quilt, I can definitely see that this would be something fun to learn as a technique. So I'm glad that you persevered. So I hope you feel a little bit more confident in making this first step with walking along with me, showing you how to make it. So we have 4 of these done now. So let's take this one off the machine. Let's take it over to the table and let me show you how to trim these blocks up. Okay, look at how pretty these are going to be together. Yeah, these were a lot of work too, but you did it, okay? You've got this. Now I'm going to walk you through how to trim this block up and how to cut it into strips, okay? So we're going to put these aside for right now. I just want to deal with 1 block at a time, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim on the outside stitch line. If you look here, you see this outside stitch line? That is our trimming line, okay? So I'm just going to take my ruler, and I want the ruler to be right on that stitch line, right on it, okay? Can I see that stitch line under the ruler? Yes, I can. Make the first cut. Okay. Now I'm going to go and just do the other side, just because I like to be symmetrical. It's just what I am here. All right, so there's the stitch line. I am right on it. It's right underneath the edge of the ruler. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this. And just for the heck of it, because I'm force of habit, I'm going to line up my ruler with the bottom so that I'm perfectly straight. And I'm right on that stitch line. As close to being right on it as I possibly can be. Line up my ruler with this edge. And I'm right on that stitch line. Okay? So that's what we're going to do first. And I'm going to do that to all of these blocks. So hang in there. Let's fast forward through this. And let's trim the outside edge of all these blocks. Here we go. Okay, so now you have all 4 blocks cut around the outside edge, right? Good job. Okay, now we're going to do the second cut, which I'm going to put these aside for the second. Focus on this 1 block. You are now going to cut on these inner stitch lines right here. The ones that go straight up and straight up. That is going to give you 3 individual strips of fabric, okay? I know it's a little daunting wanting to cut in the middle of this, but this time we're actually going to do it. So I'm lining my ruler up with the bottom of this fabric, and I've got the ruler right on that stitch line. Can I see the stitch line? Yes, I can. It's right underneath the ruler, and I make the first scary cut. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to do the same thing with this one. And the ruler's a little wonky because it's under the fabric. It's got fabric here and no fabric here, so it's lopsided. So just make sure that when you line your ruler up and you put your hand down So your stitch line is just under the ruler. You put more pressure on this section that has the fabric underneath it to keep that ruler in place. Dun, da, da, da. You now have 3 strips of fabric. That was scary to cut, huh? Yeah, but you did it, okay? So put those 3 strips together and put them off to one side. We're going to do the same thing with this block. Okay? It goes against our intuition to cut in the middle of a block, but this time it's okay. Right on that stitch line. There we go. And one more. Line it up with that, with that bottom of the ruler. Can I see the stitch line? Yes, I can. It's just underneath that, and you've got 3 more. Okay, so I'm going to put these all together. Put those off to one side. And guess what you get to do? You get to do it again with this block. All right. I can see the stitch line. It's just under my ruler. There's strip number 1. Line her up. Can I see the stitch line? Yes, it's just under my ruler. And now you've got 3 of those. And we have 1 left to do. Okay. Can I see the stitch line? Yes, I can. That one out of the way. And 1 more. Move it over just a little bit more. Can I see the stitch line? Yes, I can. Dun, da, da, da. Okay, you did it. A little nerve-wracking, but you did it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put these in piles. And this pile is going to be labeled strip set number 2. Okay. And if you remember when we built these on the embroidery machine, this was the second set that we did. So that is strip set number 2. And this one is going to be strip set number 1. So let's put them in order. Number 1 and number 2. You did it, okay? You've got these. So now you've finished part 1 in making these plaid blocks. So in the next video, I will show you how to take these strip sets and actually go back to the embroidery machine, stitch another grid, and build the plaid blocks using both of these on the embroidery machine. All right? So you're halfway there. You did a great job. Congratulations. And I hope that you will stay tuned for the next video in the series here on Jolly Molly TV, where we make more fun blocks in Kimberbell's Pumpkins and Potions ladder quilt project. Until I see you then, take care and happy stitching. Bye-bye.